And welcome to Biz Gear episode 2. So as predicted, today's session was meeting the team, just getting a feel for what everybody does and letting them get to know me, and getting a bit of an understanding of how the roles are structured, who's responsible for which activities inside of the business. It was pretty interesting. There's some good experience there. They've got a pretty good core loyal team. There's a bit of crossover, which is not unusual. We've got a bit of crossover in a few roles. Interestingly, they have a warehouse manager role, and for the size of the warehouse and the amount of movements that they have in that warehouse, it really doesn't justify a dedicated position. There's enough there that the outcomes need to be managed, stock needs to be where it's supposed to be when you need it, and inventory levels need to be maintained, but there's just not enough movement there to justify having someone looking after that full time, which they have had. Funnily enough though, the owner of the business let the team know well in advance, probably a month and a half ago, that he was going to be bringing in an external consultant to help streamline and improve the business. And the warehouse manager gave notice last week, so I think he's seen the writing on the wall. It's going to be good for him anyway. Supposedly the role that he is moving to has a lot more to do, and should be a lot more interesting for him. So that, in a sense, solves one problem for us, but leaves us with another problem in that the critical things that he was responsible for still need to be looked after, and we're going to have to fit those into one of the other roles, ideally one, potentially more than one, but ideally one of the other roles. So we've got to work out how to do that, which interestingly kind of leads us into another opportunity. In one of the other roles there, we have a purchasing officer. Now, this is an industrial supplies and safety consumables business, so they buy a lot of stuff, and so there is a lot of purchasing going on within the business, and it's a constant thing that needs to happen, and it's a daily thing. However, they've got it reasonably well under control. Parts of it are automated, and again, we need somebody in charge of that. At the moment, they've got a full-time role dedicated to that, and again, no one in the business in fact the guy who does the job isn't even convinced that he's got a full-time gig, and you can tell just by the way he reacted to our session and to meeting me, and how he described what he does in a day in his job. So now purchasing leads to warehouse, goods receiving kind of naturally falls into warehouse, so possibly that could be where some of those warehousing responsibilities end up. However, it'll be really interesting to see if this particular individual gravitates towards that and adopts the responsibility for maintaining the warehouse. I have my doubts. So the rest of the team, we've got one really experienced management person who comes from almost 2 decades of retail management, and it was interesting talking to him because he really understands the need for the systems within the business to develop them further. He's super keen. He's really pushing for everyone's roles to be defined. I am also keen for that to happen, but I don't want to jump straight in and just hit everybody up with, rightio, here's your tasks, here's your KPIs, deliver. We're going to take the approach of looking at the operational side of the business with the team's feedback and start getting them engaged in thinking about how we can improve the key business processes, the key day-to-day actions. And in my experience, naturally that will then lead us into the roles, because the people who are going to be grabbing the opportunity to streamline certain parts of the business, they will by default be the people who are typically performing those tasks on a day-to-day basis, which then means that we'll get ownership of the improvements that we want to see, and it'll become logical to everybody as to who should be responsible for what outcomes within the business, because ultimately the whole business has a full set of its own key performance indicators across every different department of the business. So you look at sales, it's got KPIs, marketing's got KPIs, warehousing's got KPIs, procurement's got KPIs, the retail showroom's got KPIs. There are certain things, that standards that need to, even delivery and delivery drivers to sales reps. So every key part of the business has key outcomes, and my role is to set the business up so that the people who are performing those tasks can achieve the KPIs from each of those departments, because if that happens, then by default the business will achieve its KPIs, and by default the business will then achieve its strategic objectives. So we're off to a pretty good start. I've met just about everybody, and overall everyone seems pretty keen, actually, especially the owner's oldest son. He's really keen, seems really switched on. I had a really good talk with him. He's eager to grow the business. He's got some ideas for systemizing things, and he is not intimidated by the idea of us working towards him ultimately becoming the general manager of the business. However, that's then going to be an interesting dynamic between the current general manager. So you've got two positions that also overlap a little, but I can see this smoothing itself out. It's just going to take some management. One of so we've got one who's called the general manager currently. That's the guy I was talking about, who's had the retail management experience, who gets all of the system side of things. And then we've got the son, who is in the operations manager role. And there's a bit of crossover between those two, but I can actually see those roles. They might have some slight changes to their titles moving forward, but I can see those two individuals being able to add value to the organisational structure long term. So they're actually a really good fit. Having them there's a few good, solid core people in the team that will give us some consistency and a bit of dependability as we go through and kind of lift the standards in the business. There's some people there who are well capable of stepping up, and there's a couple of people who might have to kind of decide for themselves whether or not they're going to step up or step out. But the way we're going to go about it, it's going to give everybody a fair opportunity. So next meeting I have planned for them, we're going to start the operational planning process. So that is going to start off by getting everybody involved in building a picture of what we actually want this business to become, and getting everybody to agree and buy into what that particular vision looks like. And then we're going to start moving into the detail, into the nitty-gritty. So I'll update you on the next one.